Wait, company people. Before we copyright claim this video is in fact fair use, so don't even try. The sad story of Henry. Remember the episode? Well, I do, because I just cannot stop getting involved in everything Thomas and Friends related, such as causing some tension between Audrey and the illustrator, as well as getting involved in an attempted adoption in the 50s that slapped hard to the ground.
So as you can tell, this episode's had a pretty long and complex history, ever since it first came into existence. But unfortunately, the Wikipedia page for this episode is only getting thicker, because, you guessed it, this episode has come back to bite again.
Since in more recent years, this episode has started to become a lot more controversial to people who've barely seen the show, with many of these people saying this episode is, quote, highly disturbing and inappropriate for children. Well, I, fandom representative Devoid Bear, am going to represent the whole of the fandom here when I say that this controversy makes no sense. And just to prove my point right from the get-go, do you guys remember what I said earlier on in this video? Here's a quick refresher. It started to become a lot more controversial to people who've barely seen the show. Did you catch that? Well, remember those words, because they come up a lot in this video. And that's because that fact alone is the biggest reason why this controversy is just as stupid as...
I'm sure my whistle isn't wonky. I must race to Farmer McColl's.
Thomas! But your whistle is... wonky! Wait, Thomas!
He blew his wonky whistle loud and long.
So how can this one simple fact ruin this entire controversy, you may ask? Well, since these people haven't seen any other episode of the show aside from the sad story of Henry, they have no idea what any of the characters' personalities are, the themes and tone of the show, what the show can and can't get away with, etc. Which is a big problem when, you know, you're making an article about one of the episodes from said show. So how do you do an article from an episode from a show you've never seen before? Oh, I know. Do f***ing research! Or just watch the show. Either one is an option. But, are you ready for this? Not a single one of these non-Thomas and Friends fans decided to do any of that. Because...
I don't know, I guess typing into Google Thomas and Friends Wikipedia takes a lot of effort, apparently.
I mean, what kind of news article writer doesn't do research the things they talk about? I mean... Okay, sorry guys, I'm back now. I got so angry that they rushed me to hospital. Now, where were we again? So why are people attacking this episode to begin with? Well, to sum up this whole controversy, it's basically like this.
But I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?
No. I actually think the Fat Controller's a bit of a sadist.
I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?
No! I don't think he deserved it. What the f***? That's not okay.
They straight up imprisoned him for eternity. What kind of moral compass is this supposed to teach kids? So dark, sentencing an engine to death, and how the narrator said he deserved it.
I'm gonna make something very clear. Henry does deserve his punishment. You see this guy right here? This man? Well, he deserves to be right in that tunnel.
Now I know for a fact these people are most likely going, what? How could you possibly say he deserves his punishment? Well, sit down children, because today I'm going to teach you the moral and story of the sad story of Henry. So the episode begins with Henry darting into a tunnel because he's quote-unquote afraid of the rain. Then he says,
The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes, he said.
even though a drop of water lying on some dry paint won't do anything. Now the reason why I said afraid of the rain in very high quotation marks is because Henry isn't actually afraid of the rain, but instead used the rain as an excuse to not work. Because at this point in time, Henry was a very stubborn and uncaring engine who only cared about himself. This is also supported by the fact that it actually stops raining halfway through the episode, but Henry still doesn't budge. So as you can see, we're about 30 seconds into the episode, and Henry's already done some pretty bad stuff, such as stranding all his passengers in the middle of nowhere, and essentially putting their lives at risk. Now that's what I call a bad engine. So then the Fat Controller shows up to get things going again, but after attempt after attempt after attempt, nothing works. All while Henry just sits there and puffs steam at everyone. So as you can see, Henry has been a very nasty engine this entire episode, so the Fat Controller has every right to punish him. And then there's the punishment itself, which I know a lot of people think is a bit extreme and
not okay,
but it's basically the equivalent of a parent sending their child to their room for misbehaving. Like, it really isn't as dark as people make it out to be. Finally, the episode ends with Henry feeling very upset and wishing he hadn't been so silly. Which also teaches kids a very valuable lesson, which is, if you do bad things, you'll get punished for it. Which I think is a very important lesson indeed. And so there we have it. I bet you guys are really smart now, don't you? But just to add to how stupid this whole ordeal is, these people also believe that Henry never did actually get out the tunnel, and he actually stayed there for
Always and always and always.
However, if these guys had did their own research, then they would know that Henry comes out the tunnel in the very next episode. But even if these people didn't watch the very next episode, if these guys had done their very own research, then they would know this is the third episode of the series, and is Henry's first starring role. And as you can clearly see, Henry appears in future episodes outside the tunnel. So even if you didn't see the very next episode, surely you must come to the conclusion that Henry comes out the tunnel, considering the fact that he's out of the tunnel. That's of course if these guys had did their own darn research. But even if you did know those two things, if these guys had did their own darn research, then they would know that at this point in time the Fat Controller only has like 4 or 5 engines on Sodor that run the entire railway. So do you really think it's such a good idea for the Fat Controller, in terms of the railway and the business, to just get rid of one of those 5 engines completely?
No!
Like, of course he's gonna let him out the tunnel eventually. Like... So there we have it, guys. That's why the sad story of Henry controversy makes no sense. Now, if you don't mind, I think my psychiatrist wants me to take 25 hours of meditation classes, so goodbye. Oh, and like and subscribe if you somehow enjoyed this.